Hi everyone, thank you for joining me once again. Today we're going to talk about the celebration of naming a baby girl among Ashkenazi Jews. Jewish communities in Ashkenaz used to give babies two names, a sacred name in Hebrew and another one in the local language. Hebrew was considered to be a holy language, a sacred one. So you prayed in Hebrew and you celebrated in Hebrew, but you would live your everyday life speaking the local language or a language that was a combination of Hebrew and the local language, such as Yiddish or Ladino. And this is how you lived your everyday life. And while you did that, people called you by your local name. But you had another name, a sacred name in Hebrew that was given to you at birth. It was used during very important celebrations, weddings, reading in the Torah, going to synagogue during the holidays. But most of your life you used the local name. Both boys and girls had two names, but for boys during the Brit Milah, when the baby is 8 days old, they would used to give him usually both names or in two separated celebrations in the synagogue. For a baby girl, it was different. When she came into this world, she got her sacred name, but then she also needed to receive her local name, the non-sacred one, the one that they would use mostly during the day. And then they did a celebration that in Yiddish it's called Hollekreish. I know it sounds very weird, but what it says is that this is the name that you're speaking, yelling, crying out. And in the first Shabbat after the baby was born, or during the first Shabbat where the mother was able to go to the synagogue again, they would do a celebration in which they would put the baby girl in that cradle and they would call out her name. There are different ways to celebrate this, but a lot of children, a lot of kids from the village or from the community used to come. They would get candies and they would sing around the baby and asking the mother what's the baby's name. They would yell out, "What should we call her? What should we call her?" And then the mother would give the name. In other communities, they would use like these plates or bowls full of sand and they would write the name on a scroll and they would place it within this plate and only then they would say it. In the ceremony where you're actually using a plate full of sand, you're actually creating a connection between the word in Hebrew, hol, which means sand, which means something secular, not holy, and the thing itself, the sand that you're using to symbolize the function of this name that you're giving. The reasons for these interesting customs are many. First off, we know that they are documented since the 12th and the 13th century, but some say that they go back all the way to the 5th century. First off, they needed to do a certain separation between Hebrew, that was holy, to local names they were using, and that was done in order to respect the holy language, the one that you're speaking for more than 2,000 years. Another one, which comes from the areas of folklore, would say that the name of the baby girl, the sacred one, should be kept hidden because we want to confuse supernatural entities that might want to take the baby and snatch it into supernatural worlds. This has an echo in many mythologies and folklore and legends, and when you're using the non-sacred name, it means that it's not her real name, and so you confuse everyone that wants to snatch the baby. Because in Jewish mysticism and in Jewish traditions, the name of something has a lot of power. You don't speak the real name of God. You don't really call angels by their names on a common basis. If you want to call demons, you need to know their names. So the name is something very powerful. So you want to keep it in only a very few hands of the family and maybe the community or the synagogue. So the other name, the name that you're shouting or yelling or crying out, is actually the one that confuses everyone that want the baby, and they will be so confused that they would leave. The need to protect babies in a world where medicine wasn't that evolved and people were looking for a lot of explanations for phenomena they couldn't understand brought out a lot of folklore and customs which we still research today. Now, another thing is that many of those who celebrated with the girl, the newborn, the baby girl, were women. And this is how we're forming a women's ceremony among the community where women are celebrating the birth of a new woman. If you have more than one name and you are willing to let us know what your names are, please do share. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.